Welcome back to Southpaw Picks, and you're here with your host Charles, and this is UFC 276, and we are going to be running through a wonderful card ahead of us. We got two title fights on the docket. We get to see who the new middleweight contender will be after Israel possibly defends this title. But before we get into that, I'm going to run you guys through a quick recap of how we did last week. We went 7-5 on predictions, and we profited 3.35 units. I'm also going to include some of my PFL winnings and Bellator winnings, although I'm not, calculating that into our UFC pick count, but just show you guys a couple of the spots I was on that week. But without further ado, let's get into the breakdown of UFC 276, starting with the main event. We got Israel Adesanya defending his middleweight championship against Jared, the Killer Gorilla Cannonier. Now, I thought about this matchup in many different sequences, wondering really how does Jared Cannonier get the opportunity to win this fight? You know, he has a bit of capabilities as far as targeting leg kicks. He's got heavy hands. I do feel like his speed will be a bit of a disadvantage here. And looking over some of the film that he had against Calvin Gastelum, he did slow down in the later rounds. So I do believe as long as this fight stays on the feet and is stretched out, Israel will have the opportunity to defend his belt. Now, how does Jared Cannonier win this fight? Well, it's pretty simple. He's got to get in close. He's got to use his physicality. And I think if he gets Israel down, he could land devastating ground and pound. But I'm going to side with the champion. I do think it is his era. At minus 500, he's not something I'm looking to bet. And none of those props seem appetizing to me. But I will side with Israel Adesanya. And still, moving on down the card here, we got the co-main event. We got Alexander Volkanovski versus Max Holloway 3. And this right here to me is probably one of the more important featherweight fights in the history of the UFC. A lot of debate will be going back and forth about Jose Aldo versus Conor McGregor, but I do feel like this one just has a little bit more historic, stance when it comes down to who is the greatest featherweight of all time. Now, I look forward to this fight probably more so than the title fight that it is under, but how do I see this fight playing out? Well, this is going to be a very pro-Max crowd. It's hard to imagine either guy finishing each other just based on their ability to defensively, operate and offensively operate. These are the top of the top, the cream of the crop in the featherweight division. And I can see this fight playing out closely again, and I feel like it's going to go to the cards again. Max did seem a bit heated up. He does have the capabilities to win a 5-round fight, but I'm going to have to side with Alexander Volkanovski, just maintaining enough distance, landing the timely shots, and getting the takedown when needed. I do believe this fight will play out close, not a spot I'm looking to be invested in. But if I am going to make a decision here, I will go Alexander Volkanovski. And still, moving on down the card here, we got another exciting, highly anticipated bout between Sean Strickland and Alex Pereira. Man, I did a lot of study on this. It was a fight I was going to try and get involved in, but the more I look into it, the more I just want to sit back and let it unfold. Sean Strickland is a very talented MMA fighter. He lacks a little bit when it comes to the athleticism and, his athletic ability. But in this situation here, going up against a tough kickboxer in Alex Pereira, someone who is notably known for the KO of Israel Adesanya in kickboxing, you just got to wonder how their striking exchange is going to work out. Now, you look over the film and you can see Alex Pereira lands a lot of heavy hooks. He kicks to the leg, he kicks to the body, mixes up his attack very well, and he's a 6'4" guy. So, he does have the ability to maintain distance and operate with high power attacks. Now, Sean is primarily a boxer who does have the ability to take the fight to the ground. Now, you are trusting and you are going to have to, hope that he's coming in there with a phenomenal game plan. But judging by the ego and the strategy of Sean Strickland, I do believe he will go in there and try to prove to you guys that not only can he take Pereira down, he can land on the feet. And playing that game might give Pereira an opportunity. Now, we cannot look over the fact that this is a 5-1 MMA fighter versus a 25-3 veteran. And with that being said, I'm going to go with Sean Strickland by unanimous decision. I think he will land the timely takedowns, and I think he'll push the pace on Pereira, probably winning rounds 2 and 3. Give me Sean Strickland in the feature bout of the main card. Moving on down here, we got a huge legend fight here. Robbie Lawler versus Bryan Barberena. a very close fight in as far as skill set goes at this point. You know, Robbie Lawler, former welterweight champion, but he's 40 years old here. But I kind of just like the way Rob Lawler has been looking recently, and I just can't get over that loss that Bryan Barberena suffered to Jason Witt. We both know that these guys are well-rounded. I do think Robbie Lawler is going to have the slightly better wrestling capabilities, and maybe the ability to shut Bryan Barberena's lights off, who, as you know, he's been in the slugfest all year. You know, been taking damage all year. I do like how Rob Lawler came out of there and put the pressure on Nick Diaz. And I do like how he's been looking even against tough contenders like Neil Magny. So I'm going to side with Rob Lawler. It's a very, very, very reasonable line to pick him here. And I think they're undervaluing Robbie Lawler based on his age. So give me Robbie Lawler by unanimous decision. Moving on down the card here, we got an exciting bantamweight bout. We got Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Pedro Munhoz. And another test for Sean O'Malley as far as a top guy, you know, a perennial top 10 in the bantamweight division. We know Pedro Munhoz is, you know, famous for his heavy leg kicks, you know, his heavy hooks, good guillotine. He's a well-rounded fighter. Like, you're going to beat him if you are on that, you know, top tier in the bantamweight division. So this is another litmus test for Sean O'Malley to go out there and prove to us just how special of a fighter he is. Now, I do personally believe Sean O'Malley is a special fighter. I like his range control. I like his inside combinations. And I like his length here in the matchup. Now, can Pedro Munhoz go out there and put it on him? Yes, the game plan is there. Attack the legs, hit Sean O'Malley up top. You know, his last few bouts, he hasn't been up against a high-caliber opponent like Pedro Munhoz, coming out of a great gym in America Top Team. Now, at minus 300, would I play Sean O'Malley? No. I think that line is way too wide. I do believe Pedro Munhoz has a shot. And, you know, he's a tough guy to finish. So I'm going to have to go with Sean O'Malley by unanimous decision. And I could even see this being a split decision win for the Sugar Show. So give me Sean O'Malley. Moving on down. I think we got the prelim headliner based on Tapology, and we're going off their fight order. We got the headliner of the prelims. We got a lightweight bout between Brad Riddell versus Jalin the Tarantula Turner. Back and forth on this fight. Personally, I love Jalin Turner. I love what he's been doing to his opposition. But this is such a huge step up. You know, and the fact that we're getting Brad Riddell here as an underdog who just took a loss against Rafael Fiziev, one of the more dangerous lightweights in the division. You know, this is an extreme buy low spot. I know the size. I know the reach. You know, I was tempted myself to go with Jalin Turner. But when you really take it in, Brad Riddell's ability to close the distance and really throw off good hooks in boxing range, I feel like he could get through and land on Jalin Turner. Now, if Jalin Turner does not get Brad Riddell out in the first round, I do believe he is in for a lot of trouble because, you know, Brad Riddell is battle-tested. He's someone that can make adjustments and turn the fight around, and he has a good gas tank and physicality here. So I'm going to have to side with the New Zealand product, Brad Riddell, and I'm going to say he wins this fight by unanimous decision. Moving on down the card, we got Donald Cowboy Cerrone versus Jim Miller. And what's at stake here at welterweight? You know, neither guy cutting down to lightweight. And what we got at stake here is who is going to be the leader of the most wins in the UFC. Now, this is also a rematch prior, I think back in 2016, where Donald Cerrone got Jim Miller out there with a kick and a knee to the body and had him folded in the second round. A lot of things have changed over the time period. You know, both guys not at their best anymore. But one guy's career kind of having a bit of a resurgence here. We got Jim Miller coming in as a 2-1 favorite over Cowboy, even though he has lost the initial matchup. It's clear to see that that Cowboy that fought Jim Miller back then is not the Cowboy that fought Jim Miller. It's going to be fighting Jim Miller this weekend. He has a little bit more experience at welterweight. He doesn't have to make the weight cut, but he's already made 2 weight cuts over the span of 6 months, and you could just tell he's a little run down. He does not look like he has the fire in his eyes. I feel like this match means more to Jim Miller than it will mean to Donald. And in a close contest, I like the guy with momentum here. Give me Jim Miller and give me him by KO in the second round, and he'll get his revenge against Donald Cerrone. And you know what? Maybe they even do a trilogy after that. That would be great. Moving on down the card, we got a welterweight bout between Ian, the future Garry, versus Gabe Green. Another fight where I was so interested in the dog and Gabe Green, coming off a lot of wonderful performances he's had in the UFC. Great cardio, great pressure, and you know, relentless pressure, I would say. And he's always up with the activity. He's really a good minute winner in the octagon. but he's going up against a prospect in Ian Garry who's going to have the size advantage, the speed advantage, the grappling advantage. And at 24 years of age, undefeated, this is definitely a spot where we could see him falter a little bit. We could see him in a bit of a dogfight where it's not as clean as we're used to. But I like Ian Garry just being a little bit better in the striking exchanges, landing the takedowns when needed, and winning this fight by TKO in the 3rd round. Give me Ian Garry by knockout over Gabe Green. Moving on down the card. Man, and what a card this is shaping up to be. So much exciting fights. Just completely locked and loaded for International Fight Week. We got another middleweight bout. As you know, this card's scattered with them. We got a middleweight bout between Brad Tavares versus Dricus du Plessis. And I bet Dricus du Plessis every fight that he's had in the UFC. He's made me uncomfortable while watching him, but he always seems to get the finish when needed. And he's going up against a very, very proven veteran in Brad Tavares. You know, this fight's going to be pretty close. I like the dog money on Brad Tavares. I feel like, you know, there's a lot of hype on Dricus du Plessis. And as much as I do believe it's warranted, there are times in the octagon where he makes you very uncomfortable with just how he's performing out there. Very untraditional with his kickboxing, but he's got absolute heavy hands and he's a finisher. Now, Brad Tavares has been a tough guy to finish if you're not up at that elite level. And at 16-2, I think Dricus is someone that is notably going to showcase his ability in the middleweight division. Does he get the KO? I don't know. This might be the first time we see him go up against the cards. And I'm going to say Dricus du Plessis by split decision over Brad Tavares, winning rounds 1, having a questionable round 2, and losing round 3. You know, I feel like a lot of guys that will have Brad Tavares in this fight might be disappointed with the fact that he doesn't do too much as far as activity goes, but he's a solid all-around fighter and could definitely win this fight any day of the week. But I'm going to side with Dricus du Plessis to continue his run in the UFC and hopefully have a big call out here. And if I was Dricus, I'd go after Derek Bronson since he doesn't have a dance partner. Moving on down here, we got another middleweight bout between Uriah Hall and André Muniz. And this is so funny, very similar to the Dricus du Plessis matchup. André Muniz is a guy that I have just completely taken as an underdog in multiple spots here in the UFC. And he's going up against a guy in Uriah Hall who's, you know, very hot and cold. You really don't know what version of him you're going to get when it comes to him showing up in the octagon. He does have the ability here to put Munhoz out. Will he do that? We'll see. This is a very interesting matchup where Uriah Hall has the ability to knock out André Muniz, which, you know, all his losses have been KOs. And then we have a guy on Uriah Hall who's never been submitted against the guy right now who's the scariest submission artist. So who here is going to impose their will? I think the fight not going the distance is probably a given. And I like André Muniz to get the blast double, lock up the body triangle, and secure the rear naked choke and give Uriah Hall his first submission loss in the UFC, and another middleweight that we are going to see just completely get rid of the old guard. And I do see Brad Tavares and Uriah Hall losing this weekend and just falling down the ranks. You know, the younger, fresher blood is coming up. Moving on down here to one of my favorite spots on the card, we got a flyweight bout between Jessica Eye and Maycee Barber. This line opened up at -200, and I immediately put together a parlay involving Maycee Barber. As you can see, the line has exploded to -300, and it might even close at -400. This is just a matchup nightmare for Jessica Eye. Someone who constantly comes forward, someone who's older in their age, someone who you're starting to see the decline against a heavy power puncher in Maycee Barber, an aggressive young girl who's constantly making improvements, and she's constantly getting better. I think this is going to be a wash. I wouldn't be surprised if Maycee could get the second round KO. And that's what I'm going to be siding with here. I'm going to say Maycee Barber stops Jessica Eye in the second round, right against the cage with some heavy hooks. I just don't see any way Jessica Eye could get an advantage unless she's just able to get off, you know, just the better boxing combinations. But even then, I just don't think she has the power to take a return shot from Maycee Barber. And she's my favorite play on the card. If you got her at that -200 spot, and give me Maycee Barber by second round TKO. Lastly, we got the first fight of the card. We got Jessica Rose Clark versus Julija Stoliarenko. And this is a dogger pass for me. Jessica Rose Clark, to me, is a little bit more Instagram model than a UFC fighter. She does show decent skills, but, you know, very limited in her ability, very limited in her IQ here. And someone who's really looked good in implementing the wrestling is going up against another girl with decent judo and another girl with good submission abilities. And we saw what happened when Stephanie Egger went in there. Someone who's pretty much, very new to the MMA game. She was in there, was able to get the hip toss and get the armbar and get Jessica Rose-Clark out of there. And I believe she was the underdog on that matchup. This is the same type of thing. Jessica Rose-Clark is a very popular girl. She's got decent striking, decent wrestling. But I do believe she's undersized in this matchup here. And they did run in the weigh-in show a little bit later today, so I won't get to see them stand right next to each other for this video. But I do like the experience that Stoliarenko has at bantamweight, more so than the experience that Jessica Rose-Clark has. As you know, she's dropped out to flyweight, she's been up, and just really shown no consistency in her career. So give me the dog in Stoliarenko, and I think she gets the armbar in round 1. There we have it. This is the UFC 276 breakdown. I cannot wait for this fight to kick off. I'm going to put the parlay that I have here in the back of the channel. Unfortunately, if you're unable to get the lines the way I got them here, it may not be as appetizing, but there's a lot of straight shots I like on this card. Like I said, I'm going to be siding with Strickland. I'm going to be siding with Dricus to Plessis. So you can take a couple straight shots on these predictions here. Thank you again for watching Southpaw Picks, and I'll catch you later next week. We got another main event that is exciting and 10 straight weeks of MMA with the Contender Series kicking off at the end of the month. And I will be doing breakdowns on the Contender Series as well. Thank you again for watching Southpaw Picks. Catch you later.